So another day, another dollar. Oh, not even that? Okay, but it's that time of the year again, or it was a couple of weeks or 3 ago, the time to celebrate our happy birthday and the games that have kept the flame alive over the last year. Shout out to Neon Matrix who suggested this video format to end the year on a high note. I'm sure that's not what he had in mind, but what kind of video format is that, you ask? It's the Ye OId Entertainment Game of the Year award, in which I choose my favorite amongst those games that I've played and reviewed this year, most of which weren't even released this year, of course. Let's take a look at, our nominees, I guess? Gamedec. Solasta, Crown of the Magister, Defend the Rook. Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, Tainted Grail, Conquest, The Temple of Elemental Evil, Black Geyser, Couriers of Darkness, Citizen Sleeper, Pillars of Eternity, Pillars of Eternity 2, Tyranny, Stray, Circus Electrique, Expeditions Rome, Underrail. And although many of these games aren't even RPGs, we are still going to use our good old category system because fuck it, why not? So these are the categories: character creation and character progression, gameplay, story and lore, companions lore-wise, companions gameplay-wise, secondary mechanics and user experience, sound effects and mix, music, voice acting, graphics, performance and stability. So without further ado, let's character creation and character progression. A character creation system is only as good as the freedom it gives the player to experiment the game in his or her own terms. I just thought it was worth repeating for the 30th time or so. I have to admit I am still pretty freaking impressed with Solasta's personality trait system. I don't know if they were a game of smoke and mirrors, but if they are, well, kudos for fooling me completely. I loved my little party of adventurers, and that was in no small part because each of them was consistent all the way through with those personality traits I gave them. And it's not just your character's personalities that work in this game. Your band of adventurers is a tight group of fighters who complement each other beautifully in combat. Unfortunately, as a player, you don't have too much of an impact on the way the events play out in this game, so I guess Solasta is going to have to walk away empty-handed in this category. Underrail's category creation system is truly brilliant because it puts you in the driver's seat of the experience in every aspect of the gameplay mix: combat, exploration, crafting, and even questing and puzzle solving. I still think backgrounds and unique player portraits would have been nice to have, but it is still one of the best character creation systems I've fiddled with this year. But I'll have to give this one to the Temple of Elemental Evil. Like Solasta's character creation system, the one in the Temple of Elemental Evil allows you to create your entire party of adventurers, but then you can choose to go solo all the way through. You can put together a full party of adventurers, you can start solo and then recruit companions such as Elmo or Otis, or you can walk a middle ground between these approaches. In addition to that, your feats and skills have an impact on many non-combat aspects like questing and exploration, so this first award goes to this old-time flawed and buggy classic. Gameplay. Tainted Grail Conquest pretty much beat the crap out of my every expectation. Take the incredibly addictive design of Slay the Spire and make it the core gameplay mechanic for a dark fantasy action RPG that also features questing and some pretty fucking amazing writing. You can't freaking go wrong with that. Oh, wait, you can if you make it a roguelite and if your classes are slightly unbalanced. Still, Tainted Grail Conquest was one of the most pleasant experiences this year. I still can't recommend it enough. Underrail is an RPG that puts you in the driver's seat of the experience, and this experience includes exploration in a vast post-apocalyptic world, challenging combat, intriguing missions, and even head-scratching puzzles that don't outstay their welcome. The game starts off a bit slow, and it kind of botches the pace after the point of no return plot point. But otherwise, this is a game you cannot pass on if RPGs are your thing. But to me, this one has to go to Pillars of Eternity 2. This is a game that takes more than 60 hours to complete, more than 80 if you include all 3 DLCs, and it goes by in a snap. It also has huge story-based replay value, and watching events unfold in this or that way because you decided to do such thing and not such other is the cherry on the cake for an RPG whose fun factor
is too damn high.
Story and lore. Citizen Sleeper was a competently written game that was structured in a way that granted the player a surprising amount of freedom to navigate its branching paths of stories however he wished. It had multiple endings, and they weren't simply variations of a linear narrative. They were the result of the player's choices. True, the way in which the dystopian reality of the game and many of its characters were depicted came off as mild and lacking in gravitas. You tell me that a mercenary is seasoned and badass, but you show her worrying about finding her true self in a world that hates her. I don't buy it. Despite that, if you are looking for RPGs with good writing and a solid pace that do not revolve around combat, I'd say Citizen Sleeper is the game for you. From the narrative perspective, Tainted Grail Conquest was a Kafkian journey that took a deep dive into the many faces of guilt. It was a lesson that if we want to escape our own private hells, the best way to do that is to help others through theirs. Unfortunately, this exquisitely written game and the deep perspective it offered on the theme of guilt was completely undone in the end when the lessons and the morals of the story were explained to you as though you were a current-gen TikTok user. But it is still quite surprising that an action RPG that has Slay the Spire inspired card mechanics of all things dared to explore the theme of guilt so thoroughly. Gamedec told a fantastic story that was also a deceitfully complex perspective on the trap of playing someone else's game. It also had a fantastic plot twist that represented that moment in which the player comes to the realization that he or she has actually been playing someone else's game. What will you do now that you've come to this realization? Unfortunately, the story is a bit rough around the edges and the writing is a bit all over the place. I suspect that if the devs had been given a few more months, this game would have taken away this award home. Stray was a complex representation of the phenomenon of human degradation seen through the eyes of a creature who was able to escape this hellhole of uncaring because in its animal simplicity, he understood the value of cooperation and empathy. It was a brilliant story, even if its details were kept purposefully vague and even if it was a tad too emotionally manipulative near the end. Tyranny featured a unique world, fresh and expansive. It was bold and daring in its premise. It presented a world that had been almost completely conquered by a totalitarian ruler. And you were meant to be one of its agents. Now that's something you don't see every day. As far as complex narratives with very clearly defined plot points that still put you in the driver's seat of the story go, it doesn't get much better than Tyranny. But I am still going to give this one to Expeditions Rome. If this disappoints you, sorry, but totally not sorry. In this day and age, an entertaining, unpretentious, quick-paced, straightforward story that's lean and that has you as the protagonist and pits you against a manipulative villain that is various steps ahead of you at all times, that makes you consider shitting on everything civilization is built upon just to get back at him, and it gives you the possibility to do so, but also rewards you for not falling to the temptation, just has to take this one home. This game brought back the childlike excitement that I got from all those awesome movies and games from the 80s and 90s, and I'll absolutely drink to that. Companions lore-wise. Your party of adventurers is an endearing, light-hearted little family in Solasta Crown of the Magister, but what's more important is that it is of your own making. Only the metric ton of cheese of the writing keeps it from taking this one home, but I think it deserves a special mention. The characters in Expeditions Rome brought some of that je ne sais quoi that we got from our companions in the original Dragon Age or the Mass Effect saga. And as far as character arcs go, these are probably the best of the lot this year. Deianira would easily find a spot in my top 10 companions of all time, and some others like Cineros are also great. But as good as these guys are, I think they would still come out second on a fair mano a mano against Durans, Sagani, the Grieving Mother, Aloth, and Adair from the original Pillars of Eternity. Even if there were a couple of characters that I really didn't like in Pillars of Eternity as characters, which didn't happen in Expeditions Rome. But in Pillars of Eternity, these guys and gals each come with a pack full of lore, they are a window into the costumes and ways of life of their birthplaces, have compelling anecdotes to share about the world around them, and some of them have fascinating, thought-provoking backstories. So yes, this one goes to the original Pillars of Eternity in my book. Companions gameplay-wise. So Pillars of Eternity 2 cheated a bit with a choose what you want your companion to be tactic. Well played, yes. And if you felt like that wasn't enough, you could create your own adventurers. And I can proudly say that I created my favorite tag in any RPG I've played. Solasta also made me pat myself in the back for creating such a well-balanced party. But this one has to go to Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, because I lost count of the times in which I had my ass handed over to me, went back to my stronghold, chose the appropriate companions, and then went back to thoroughly kick the baddies in the booty. That's how varied your companions are in this game. Secondary mechanics and user experience. I admit these are two different categories that I lumped together to shorten up the videos. And in such sense, I think the additional things that you do in Underrail that aren't combat, exploration, or questing, like crafting for example, are super useful and relevant to every other aspect of the game. But damn was that user experience obscure and clunky. The original Pillars of Eternity introduced an inventory management and crafting system that was a blessing and a joy to use, and the sequel improved upon most of that. But I suppose that if we factor in the relevance and usefulness of the non-core mechanics of the game and their ease of use, this one has to absolutely go to Defend the Rook. This is a game in which you start the engine and go and never have to worry about not understanding how to do things. And everything that you do in that game that is not combat is something that you need to pay attention to if you want to be good at combat. And the best news is that these secondary mechanics are so fun that you'll be looking forward to engaging in all of them. Sound effects and mix. Solasta has some pretty amazing sound design for spells and combat actions. Unfortunately, the rest of the sound is just okay. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous had a robust sound design that cranked up the immersion aspect of the game through the roof. And that finishing move that you could pull off in army combat sequences? My second favorite sound-related event this year. What's the first one, you wonder? Oh, without question, my favorite single sound-related event this year by a mile is that finishing combat move in Black Geyser.
It's nice to kill. The mightiest fall!
But as competent as the sound design was in all these games, this one is a no-brainer of a decision, guys. Circus Electrique has hands down the best sound design in any game I played this year. Holy fucking shit, this game is a joy to listen to at all times, in all screens. The sound mix here is truly a work of art. Music. Pillars of Eternity 2 had some amazing tracks and of course the sea shanties, which were even different depending on how many guys or gals you had in your crew. Truly mind-blowing stuff. Then you have the deceitfully deep and immersive soundtrack in Citizen Sleeper. The music in Citizen Sleeper takes the backseat and remains understated for the most part, but this game packs a punch from time to time, and it's the music that drives it home. This is how soundtracks are done in multimedia experiences in my opinion, and the composer should be given all the credit in the world for how on point the music was at all times when it came to adding to the dramatic intention of every passage of the game. But as good as all these soundtracks are, I think Circus Electrique still trounces all of these games easily. Man, what a soundtrack, one of the best of the decade, except the soundtrack in Tainted Grail Conquest is just too fucking awesome and too much my kind of soundtrack. I've been listening to this one in my car as a standalone record, and yes, that's the kind of nerd I am. So at the very least, I think Circus Electrique and Tainted Grail Conquest should share this honor. Voice acting. This is a tough one. The voices of Nerat, Seraphine, Durans, Vitellius Lurko, and Woljif were all fantastic. But which of these games has the best voice acting as a whole?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know either. So I guess I'm going to go with Durans and Company, and that means Pillars of Eternity takes this one home. Graphics. Circus Electrique had some of the most amazing and quirky animations I've ever seen. And the artistic consistency of the game is just aces all the way. Passion and attention to detail ooze out of every pore in this game. But this one has to go to Stray. Not only are the cat's animations spot on, but the location in which the story takes place is so alive and rich, so expansive and intricate, and so overwhelming that it becomes another character. It is a monument to human decay, and you could almost say that it is the antagonist of the story, and I cannot speak highly enough of it. Performance and stability. Well, of course, Defend the Rook and Citizen Sleeper were absolutely flawless. But hey, it's not like they took any great risks, did they? For a game that was made by 5 people, that packs more than 80 hours of gameplay, not counting the replay value, and puts the player in the driver's seat at all times, Underrail is pretty fucking impressive. When a game as ambitious as this one, made by a crew as small as this one, is as solid as this one, it just has to snatch this category. And that's it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for tuning in once again. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thank you for watching all the way up until now. If you like what you are seeing on this channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell to avoid the usual YouTube shenanigans. Share the video, but most importantly, never stop gaming, but don't let gaming get in the way of your hopes and dreams. Bye everyone.